Well, it was 2 decades ago that an 11-year-old named Michael was a student at the Gardner Street Elementary School in Hollywood. Recently, they named their new auditorium after that same little boy who turned out bad. Details coming up.
Casey's Top 40. American Top 40.
These are the biggest hits of the week. I'm Shadoe Stevens on American Top 40. Okay, now imagine for a moment that this guy stops you on the street and hands over bundles and bags of money and says, the world's biggest toy store is just around the corner. Go crazy. What would you do? Well, here's a superstar who got that kind of a chance, but he did it with his own money. He's Michael Jackson, of course, and Michael did his spending a few months ago at Hamleys in London, which many say is the world's largest toy shop.
Hey, pretty baby with the high heels on, you give me fever like I've never ever known.
Michael spent £1,000, that's roughly $1,700, in about 70 minutes. And what did he buy from his personal wish list? 3 rubber glove puppets of himself and 3 more of Stevie Wonder, more than 20 teddy bears and dolls, 2 radio-controlled Jeeps, an electronic spelling aid for 5 to 11-year-olds called My First Computer, and 10 handheld computer games. Anyway, while wandering down the aisle stocked with every kind of toy for every girl and boy, Michael came upon a robot that sold for £112,000, more than $187,000. Michael looked up and down at the mechanical marvel and thought about it and then shook his head. I can't afford it, he said. But then some days later, Michael offered to pay $2 million to a private party for an antique merry-go-round. You figure it out. Michael's at number 13 this week on American Top 40 with his latest hit. Here's Smooth Criminal.
Casey's Top 40.
This is Casey counting them down on Casey's Top 40. Now, it was just 2 decades ago that a real good friend of Janet's, an 11-year-old named Michael, attended the Gardner Street Elementary School here in Hollywood.
Every day I sit and ask myself, how did love slip away?
Not long ago, that same Michael went back to that school where they named their new auditorium after him. Here's the story. The year was 1969. Michael's family had just moved from their hometown of Gary, Indiana to Los Angeles. Michael and 4 of his brothers had signed a record deal with Motown. Work was proceeding on the group's first album, but in the meantime, life went on as usual, and of course that meant going to school. Michael, who was the youngest member of the group, enrolled in the 6th grade at the Gardner Street Elementary School. No one there knew they had a future superstar in their midst. All they knew was that he was a shy, quiet, studious sort of fella who got good grades and didn't make friends easily. But there was something special about Michael. His teacher, Laura Gerson, says, quote, I remember seeing Michael the first time in the playground. I remember thinking he was a beautiful little kid. She says she'd never heard of his singing group, and he never talked about himself. He was just one of the kids. Well, recently that 6th grade kid went back to his old school. He was greeted by the school chorus singing a song he had co-written called We Are the World. He was surrounded by television and newspaper reporters, and the school proudly unveiled its new meeting hall, which they had named after him, the Michael Jackson Auditorium. Michael told a school assembly, we must all never forget that children are our future. Then he went back to room 8, his old classroom, and autographed the wall, a signature we doubt will ever come off the wall. And that's our report on the day a bad student named Michael went back to his old elementary school for a thriller of a day. Now, on with the countdown.
Shadoe Stevens in a non-stop run to number 1. A few months ago, we played part of an interview AT40 did quite a few years ago with the man at number 21, Michael Jackson. And we got a lot of requests for more. So here we go from our archives. More Michael. While the Jacksons lived at home, we asked Michael and the boys what life was like in Mom and Papa Jackson's house. And here's what Michael and his brothers told us.
There was always a lot of singing, a guitar always lying around. A lot of grit cans and stuff and grit boxes you could beat on and little things like that. And I mean, to me, if you really want to make music, you can make music out of anything. Piece of paper, a bag, anything. And I mean, that's if you really want to make music.
Slappers that
that's what we did. We sang every day.
Make noise around the house. Mike was the noise maker.
Michael was the noise.
Just hollers around the house, just making noise.
Any kind of noise.